question really historically about the attestation of Jesus Christ existing as a historical figure. However, the evidence that he rose from the dead is nothing. It's meaningless. It's absolutely meaningless.
Wait, you just said you got to make your point again. So he did exist? You just said there's no evidence that he did exist.
You cited the Talmud, which I'm familiar with, and other contemporaries. And while there is evidence, of course, that he existed as a historical person.
Okay, good, because you didn't say that.
There is, I believe I did, but anyways, there is, I'm pretty sure
Go ahead, keep going. Go ahead.
You said that there's evidence that he rose from the dead, and that it's written about how, an author wrote about how 500 people saw him rise from the dead. What about the plethora of Jewish scholars and rabbis surrounding him, all in that general vicinity, who could have spoken to all these extant people who witnessed this miracle, this rising from the dead, who didn't convert to Christianity?
Talk about a theory, baby. Talk about a theory that you just made. Go get me those manuscripts and those authors, and I'll believe you. But here, let me help your point. Let me help your point. Let me help your point right now. I'm going to jump on your side. Let me help you. Jerome and Nero, they're back and forth in the ancient manuscripts we have. You're right. They said it didn't happen. So let me help you. They actually said these Christians believe in witchcraft. They believe in this ridiculousness that he actually rose from the dead. So we can at least establish that they did believe that. Now, you need to answer me. Here's one of the biggest pieces of evidence for it. Because we can go, oh my gosh, you and I can sit down and talk about this for an hour. But I'm going to give you one of the biggest pieces of evidence and then come back to me and tell me how in the world did this happen. How did the early church start that exponentially grew from 1,000 to 5,000 and then took over 2/3 of the Roman Empire before Constantine, well before 325? How did that occur? How did they pull this off?
I'll tell you precisely why that occurred.
Okay, good.
At that time in history, it was a very troubling time for the Roman Empire, fighting the Sassanids. And the area in the Levant was very impoverished and war-stricken. Jesus Christ offered a different message, or his disciples offered a different message than the religions of the time. It was very reassuring to a people who had been oppressed and who had been marginalized. There was a ripe opportunity for such a belief system to spread like wildfire through a group of people who were receptive to it because of their grief. That's the wonderful thing that religion offers that atheism doesn't offer to many people.
Beautiful.
That's why it existed. Saying that it's because,
the
single supernatural event in history is the reason to explain all of religion spreading quickly is an extreme leap. And I'm sorry, but I want to go back to your discussion of the multiverse and misquoting other.
Finish your point here.
Because you're going to take 20 minutes to respond.
No, I'll give you 2 quick points. I'll give you 30 seconds. I think you're getting lost in your own argument. That's why you don't want me to respond.
I don't believe so. Okay, fine, respond, and then let me come back with the other point.
There we go. So you talked about this bereavement.
Yes.
Well, okay, so hallucinations after a religious figure died. Hallucinations occur with one person. You talk to any academic you would like. Over 500 people hallucinating at one time because of bereavement that the religious figure died has never ever happened, and it's impossible to happen. Secondly, it's narrow-minded of you to think that 2/3 of the Roman Empire at the time that became Christian, that all of these Jews were, say for example, simply poor and needed this because of the Roman Empire. You're right, I was in Rome this past summer, and certainly a big part of the Christian faith spread through the poor. Absolutely. But a large portion of the intelligentsia, he named some earlier, Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus, also were Christian. So they had everything to lose by becoming Christian. Why would they do that? They didn't have anything to gain. And you said they had a lot to gain. And so I'm flummoxed by that.
I didn't say they had a lot to gain. I want to directly address both of those
points.
Correct it then. As far as the conversion, by the way, 2/3 of the Roman Empire before Constantine converting, I just have to look back at that fact. I don't believe that that's the case.
Go look it up and bring it out.
But
tomorrow's our last day.
Okay, great. The other point you made, could you restate it again? It was
hallucinations?
Hallucinations, yes. We don't have there still is not actually evidence that 500 people did see him. There's evidence that someone wrote that 500 people did see him. That is the sum total of the actual evidence that you have to claim. And this goes back to what you said yesterday about the Bible as a historical document. The Bible is, you're right that there are slim attestations of things that we accept as historical fact in history. But the difference is that they're plausible. The Bible is claiming the single supernatural event in history, and your only burden of evidence is a document which is a singular
over 5,800 documents. You're right.
That claim what?
Over 5,800.
Yes.
Based off of the Orthodox belief that all trace back to the eyewitnesses who gave it in 100. I didn't state this yesterday. 115 A.D. All the church fathers got it. That became the church universal and the understanding of what was put in to these Greek manuscripts. They agreed with each other. If you would like to go look them up, that's another piece of homework. Go look them up and tell me, is there internal consistency in them? And if they're all disparate and there's not, I'll hop over to your position. Or at least grant that there's a lot of legitimacy to it.
Okay, well, like we said yesterday, one of the early schisms, like in the church, I'm talking about pre-Orthodox, I'm talking about very early, was whether or not Jesus even was resurrected. There was a question about that. There were people who considered themselves Christians or disciples of Christ who said, I think that he was a great teacher, but I'm still basically a Jew, and I believe in just that he wasn't the Son of God. That was in the very early formulation of Christianity. That was a valid position.
Called what?
Some people argued.
Called what?
I don't remember the name.
That's unfortunate because that group did not exist.
But
there is no group of Jewish Christians who denied the resurrection in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd century.
Okay, fine.
That's a good myth you just created.
Let's not call them Christians. Let's call them all the Jews.
No, they didn't deny the reresurrection, sir. If anybody called himself a Christian in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd century, they held tightly to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. So let's not start making up false history.
Call them the
Fake
Jews living
news.
next to them. Call them the Jews
Fake
living
news,
in
sir.
Canada.
Not acceptable.
Okay, fine.
Okay?
And then let's go on to your theories about the existence of the universe and why it exists.
Yes.
Your entire theory, the sum total of your theory for why something exists, is let's invent another equally improbable idea that there's a God who could create everything, and write off the rest of history as, well, history.
You do not listen well. I have stood out here repeatedly and talked about a beaver's dam pointing to a beaver. How the Golden Gate Bridge points not to a beaver, it points to a much more intelligent mind, a human mind, to create the Golden Gate Bridge. And then you move from the Golden Gate Bridge to the human eye, the human central nervous system. We're using the argument of design to point to a designer. In the same way designer genes point to a designer, so the design of your eye, your central nervous system, the laws of nature point to an intelligent mind. Simple, watertight argument, doesn't prove anything, but it's a weighty piece of evidence that behind the order and design of this universe, there's an intelligent mind, some type of God. That's simple.
Intelligent design is one of the most egregious claims that creationists make. What you just said, well, okay, whatever you call yourself.
Don't mislabel us then. Listen to us and take us as unique individuals, not people who fit into your little stereotypes and your myth, okay?
Intelligent design, not evolution. Correct?
Is yours a faith position?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
Oh, baloney.
So you've tested
you got just as much faith as I do.
You've tested the beginning of time in a
You
test
got more
tube.
faith than I do.
I know exactly what you're getting at. You're getting at that my belief in science is equivalent to your faith in...
No, that's not my point.
Okay.
My point is you can never go on a scientific date. You don't have one relationship that you treasure so highly that you can prove scientifically.
Science is not
you are getting wrapped up in science. It's very sad.
It is a process.
You've got to learn by observation that a lot of your life has a lot more to do than with science. You've got to learn that trusting a human being has nothing to do with math, it has nothing to do with biology, it has nothing to do with chemistry or physics. It has all to do with learning to love a person and to trust a person. And for you to consistently come back to science is very sad because it shows a very narrow view of reality.
It's actually,
Get
it's
your-
actually an extremely broad view.
Get bigger.
God works through science.
Of course God works through science, and he works through mathematics, and he works through history.
Science. You're bringing in philosophy as well as
philosophy
science.
did I bring in?
What philosophy? We're talking about origin right here. You're talking about origin. That's a philosophical, metaphysical question.
No,
Then
what
you
I'm
brought in
saying is
process.
that-
Process is science, absolutely. But then you got to come to the end game and figure out, okay, what's the deal here based off of my theories? Theories are faith positions.
No.
Theories
No.
come
There's a
largely
critical
based off of faith. Why do they change? Every
that is the
year.
most egregious
Exactly,
thing that
because
you
you
guys
cannot
know.
prove
That's the most egregious
you cannot prove it.